Good morning, Virgin Islands, and happy Paradise Tuesday to all. And this beautiful Tuesday in Santa Cruz, July 17th, 14th, rather, 2026. It's the second Tuesday of the month of July. We have two more Tuesdays in this month. Once again, welcome to At the Table with Crucian Educator. This is yours truly, Verdell Peterson. It's my pleasure to serve as the host for this 1 hour radio talk show on the number one station in the Caribbean, WSTX. You're not listening on your radio dial. Unfortunately, the station is still experiencing transmittal issues. So if you're listening to this now, you're probably hearing it streamed on the Facebook page for WXTX. And it's a little delayed today, but nonetheless, we're here. It's a talk show. You're welcome to call in and express your views on a variety of topics. Today, I was anticipating a guest, an aspirant for the 37th legislature. However, that did not occur, unfortunately. So I'm here and I would like to hear from you, the listening audience. I have three questions that I'm going to pose, and anyone interested in calling in, you're welcome to do so. The numbers are 340-773-0390 and 340-773-0490. Okay, so as I always say, knowledge is power. And my mission and passion is to educate, enlighten, and inspire minds. Everyone is entitled to an opinion, a view, a perspective, a theory, a belief, an idea, and even a delusion. However, you're not entitled to your own facts. Facts can be verified. Now, I believe there is now a total of 17 days left before primary election here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And I hope you have been vetting your aspirants. There are several seats. Let me go to the vivote.gov and make sure I have the accurate information. But the primary election is scheduled for August 1st of this year, 2026. If you want to have accurate information, I suggest you go to VI Vote. VI Vote, because I'm doing that right now. VI Vote. That gov. VI Vote. That gov. Okay. Yes, I'm accurate. 17 days left before the primary elections. And to be precise, I'm looking here at the website, vivote.gov. It says 17 days, 15 hours, 13 minutes, 3 seconds. It is now too late to register to vote. But there's a general election, which is the first Tuesday in November. But we have a primary election, and there are several candidates in each category. So there are several categories of races, and the ballot is a single sheet ballot. Although some members of the Board of Elections would have liked to complicate the matter and make it two separate sheets, but it's a single sheet. And you have the following races or categories. You have the position for delegate to U.S. House of Representatives. Now, I don't have the ballot, sample ballot in front of me, so I am going by memory. And this is just impromptu speech that I'm here because, as I said, I had a guest scheduled. Anyway, to continue, for delegate to U.S. House of Representatives, there are 3 females and 1 male. Number 1 on the ballot is Emmett Hansen, a former senator. Number 2 on the ballot is Terry Helenies, who has been working on behalf of the people of the Virgin Islands to get us the rum cover over. And for a full explanation of that, you could go and do your own research. I'm giving you the facts. Yes, I know we have a current delegate to U.S. House of Representatives, Stacey Plaskett. However, if you read the platform of each of these candidates, that's the credit that Terry Helenies is reporting, working on behalf to get the rum cover over at the permanent rate. Each one has strong points. I am not endorsing any candidate. I'm not even pointing out any weakness. I like to keep it positive. And as I said, facts can be verified. Number 3 on the ballot is Delia Smith. She's a St. Jonian native. She served as the first female of color from the U.S. Virgin Islands to be appointed U.S. Attorney for the Virgin Islands. And 4th on the ballot is Janelle Saru, a seasoned politician who served several terms in the Virgin Islands legislature. So you can only choose one of those candidates. I'd like to know your thoughts. I don't want anyone to be, because this is not some survey poll or trying to get support for any particular candidates. I would like to know what's your thought on the race for delegate to Congress. What's your understanding of the requirements to be eligible to run for this position, which is a federal position? Whomever the electorate choose to serve as our new delegate to Congress, that person is paid by the federal government. Okay? But the person role is to work on behalf of the people of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Now, I don't know exactly what is the description for the delegate to Congress. Is there an official description of the job? I am not certain. But knowledge is power, and I'm thirsty for knowledge. So if you know what is the official description for that job, let me know. The job description of delegate to Congress, officially known as delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives. So there you have it. You have 4 candidates in that position. You can only choose one. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. But you could also write in a candidate. The next race on the ballot, I believe it goes in this order, would be for the gubernatorial team. You have 2 gubernatorial teams. Number 1, Roach Francis team. Number 2, Plaskett Potter team. Number 3, Fred Gregory Moorhead team. So you have 2 females who are running for governor, aspiring to be the 10th elected governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands and the first elected governor, female elected governor rather, of the Virgin Islands. You can choose one team or you can write in a team. It's always the write in option. So, question. What's your understanding of the duty of the governor, or duties, because there's several duties of the governor and the duties of the lieutenant governor? By law, they have to run as a team, and that's not always the case. That's not the case in every U.S. jurisdiction. In some jurisdictions, they run separately, the lieutenant governor and the governor. However, here in the U.S. Virgin Islands, it's a team. They work together to campaign and be elected as a team. And hopefully when they get into office, they also work as a team. But they do have separate duties. And a law that was not always in existence, they have to be from the same political party. So you can't have a team, one is a registered Democrat and one is a registered Republican. That loophole was taken care of during the tenancy or term of the supervisor of elections. And if you're not aware, the supervisor of election is Dr. Carolyn Fox. And I have here the official listing because, as I said, I'm going to the website and I am looking at the information. So you have access to this as well. But they gave you a listing of all the aspirants. They didn't break it down. It's not broken down, but I mentioned already the aspirants for gubernatorial team and for delegate to U.S. House of Representatives. So in all, there are 31 names on the ballot in the St. Croix district. Let me go through this and read it off for you. Forgive me if I mispronounce anyone's name. In this order, I think it's in the order when they filed. Mustafa. Number 2, Winona Hendricks. Okay, I'll let you know. That's for Board of Education. Stacy Plaskett, Milton Potter, gubernatorial team. Mary Peggy Moorhead, number 4, Board of Elections. Number 5, Vincent H.A. Garden. That one I'm not even sure. Let me check to see what that's. Oh, Board of Education. Elizabeth Hanson Watley. Oh, wait a minute. They included. Okay, this is for the general election. Everybody. And of course, 7 will be elected for the primary election, running for the 37th legislature. So Elizabeth Hanson Watley, she's not in the primary. She's running for the 37th legislature. Next, you have Shamari Haynes. That is, make sure, Board of Elections. Majani. Wait a minute. Mo Dennis, Board of Education. Some of these names I've never heard of. Christopher Jacobs Jr., that's Board of Education. Alvin Milligan, that's for the legislature, not in the primary. Frankie Johnson, legislature, not in the primary. Lucy M. Jackson, Board of Education, not in the primary. Dwight Mike Cartier, he's in the primary. He's running for the legislature. Emmett Hansen, he's in the primary. He's running for delegate to Congress. Juliet Liebird, Board of Elections, not in the primary. As I said, some of these names I am hearing for the first time. So I'm happy to be educating and enlightening you, as well as myself, because some of these names I have not heard before. Emmett Hansen, he's in the primary, delegate to Congress. Clifford Joseph, he's in the primary for the legislature. Diane Prosper, legislature, she's not in the primary. Gustav James, Randall Bennett, gubernatorial race, not in the primary. Tyler Cortland Faye. Gotta look this one up. Not in the primary, running for legislature. Luce Brown, running for the legislature, not in the primary. Bianca Francis, she's running for the legislature. She's not in the primary. Hubert Frederick is in the primary. He is an incumbent senator. Summer Karian, not in the primary, running for legislature. Terrence Joseph, not in the primary, running for Board of Education. Terry Helenese, in the primary, running for delegate to Congress. Linda Nikki Brooks, in the primary, running for the legislature. Kurt Viale, incumbent senator, running for the legislature in the primary. Jose Bessie Gonzalez, in the primary, he's running for the legislature. Julian Vera, running for the legislature, not in the primary. Ophelia Williams Jackson, running for the legislature. She's in the primary. So you have 31 names on the ballot for the St. Croix district. For both districts, you will have the names for the candidates running for delegate to House of Representatives, as well as the gubernatorial teams. However, the names will be different for those running for a district seat in the legislature. It would be different from the ballot for the St. Croix district, and also for Board of Education and Board of Elections. I am focused here on St. Croix since I am in the district of St. Croix. If you're listening to this and you want to see the names for the district of St. Thomas, St. John, you can go to vivote.gov. The information is there. Let's see. What other information can you get from? You could get a lot of stuff from going to vivote.gov. All right. It has here the number of registered voters, active list for each island. St. Thomas. And St. Thomas would include Water Island, and there are people living on Water Island, okay? So you have Virgin Islands residents and Water Island. So that would be part of St. Thomas. The number is 14,333. St. John, smallest number of registered voters, 1,294. Imagine that. Less than 2,000 registered voters on St. John. That is why St. John cannot be a district by itself. It's combined with St. Thomas, because you have something known as the one man, one vote principle. You would have overrepresentation for the island of St. John if you had St. John as a standalone district. Hence, it's combined with St. Thomas to make one voting district. I know some of you have heard something called reapportionment. The word is confusing and sometimes misleading. Reapportionment refers to changing the number of representative per district, but that's based on the census. And when we say representative, we're not talking about senators. We're talking about the structure of the central government, the Congress, the US government, the federal government. There's a Congress. It is bicameral. You have two parts. You have the House of Representatives. Each state elect a certain number of representatives. However, every state can only elect 2 state senators. It doesn't matter the size of the state. It doesn't matter the population of the state. However, it matters for the number of representatives. It's based on the population. And states are broken down into districts. So it is not easy to compare our structure to the Congress. Number one, the Virgin Islands legislature is unicameral. There are 2 districts, 2 voting districts. We elect 7 senators from each district. Those registered voters in the St. Thomas and St. John district can only elect senators from that district. Residents registered in the St. Croix district can only elect senators from the St. Croix district. That's the way it works. It's a lot different. It's more complex when you're talking about the US government, the Congress. The population sometimes shift in a state or in a district. Regardless of what it shift, increases, decreases, you still maintain the same number of senators elected to the Senate of Congress, 2 for every state. Districts, every 10 years is a census conducted. So a district could increase dramatically or decrease dramatically because people move around. A state compared to an island, we're talking a vast difference in size. Puerto Rico is an island. Puerto Rico is larger in size than a few states. Question, could you tell me which state has smaller, which states are smaller than Puerto Rico in size as well as in population? So that's a question you may call in if you wish to participate. 340-773-0490 or 340-773-0390. Okay, going ahead, because there's so much information that I can give out, but it's only an hour show. And if you wish for further information, you can also give your inquiries on the Facebook page for WSCX or on my page. You're welcome to join my FB or Facebook page, group rather, Virgin Islands Affairs Forum, if you wish to immerse yourself virtually into the political, historical, educational, cultural, and social affairs of the Virgin Islands of the United States. Okay, I'm still on the VI Vote page, website. St. Croix, we're talking about active register voters. Those are the ones that can participate in the election. And if you have not checked your status, I'm talking about the two elections now. We're talking primary elections. If you are registered as a Democrat, you can participate in the primary election of August 1st. And there's also early voting. If you're not a registered Democrat, you cannot participate in the primary elections. If you're not sure and you have a voter's registration card, check. It tells you if you're registered as a Democrat or a Republican, ICM, or no party. Because I have met several individuals who said, I don't know what I'm registered as, so I don't know if I can participate in the primary elections. And I'm like, why not check your registration card and see? So some have discovered that, yes, I'm a Democrat. And I'm like, well, I urge you to come listen to my show because I'm giving information. This show is scheduled for Tuesdays, 8 to 9, and WSTX 970 AM. However, at this moment, you will not be hearing it on the radio. It's not being broadcast on the radio, on the 970 radio channel. But the information is being recorded and being streamed on the WSTX Facebook page. It's also on YouTube. So the information is going to be repeated because I am going to share it. And you're welcome to share this information as well. And St. Croix, again, 15,272 registered voters. So you see why St. Thomas and St. John are combined as one district. Because if you take the one, run it after 1,000 registered voters on St. John and run it after 14,000 registered voters on St. Thomas, that's 15,000. You run it off for St. Croix, that's 15,000. Now you tell me, how could you make St. John a district by itself? It's not going to work. You got to do some arithmetic, some calculation here to make sense. But there you have it. And the total number is 30,899 registered voters. Has it increased this year? Probably, not sure. But my understanding is the Board of Elections should be going out there actively getting folks to register to vote. The supervisor of elections and the board of elections have certain duties. Again, you can get information, the same information that I'm reading you right here from the elections system of the Virgin Islands website. So I'm giving this information I'm reading. Bear with me. Vision. The Virgin Islands of the United States, where every person is engaged, every vote is valued, and trust in our election is unshakable, strengthening a democracy that reflects the hopes, aspirations, and future of all our people. That's the ESVI, Elections System of the Virgin Islands mission and vision. Okay, now let me give you the mission statement: to champion a fair, transparent, and accessible electoral system that empowers every voice in the Virgin Islands of the United States. We commit to integrity, education, and innovation as we safeguard democracy and ensure every citizen can participate with confidence and pride. Well, I can only speak for myself. I am very proud to be a registered voter in the St. Croix district, and I definitely will not miss this opportunity. Tomorrow is not promised. However, should I be present, you can bet on it that I will participate in the primary election, which is on August 1st, 2026, as a Saturday. But you also have early voting, okay? Our commitment to our voters. The staff commits to excellence in maintaining up-to-date, accurate voter registration rolls to provide fair and equal opportunities for all qualified voters to participate in the democratic process. It's your choice to register or not to register. I just want to remind you, our ancestors fought for us to have the rights that they didn't have. They sacrificed their blood, sweat, and tears so we can have these rights we presently have and privileges being citizens of the U.S. Virgin Islands. The U.S. Virgin Islands is an unincorporated territory of the United States. It's not a state. There are 50 states. While we reside here, we cannot vote for the president, and we cannot elect a voting member of Congress. The delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives is a non-voting member of Congress. However, still a member of Congress. So I find it insulting that some people would challenge Stacey Plaskett calling herself Congresswoman Plaskett. She's a member of Congress. However, she cannot vote. She is not seeking re-election. As I mentioned previously, there are 4 candidates. Let me run through this again because it's reinforcement. Number 1, Emmett Hansen. Number 2, on the ballot, Terry Helenies. Number 3, Delia Smith. And number 4, Janelle Saru. Those 4 candidates are aspiring to be the next delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives. Okay? Now, let's go on. The goal, and this is all coming from the election system of the Virgin Islands website, vivote.gov. The goal to coordinate and implement all election-related services and activities in the Virgin Islands. Okay? That is the election system. It has 2 components. You have the Office of the Supervisor of Elections, and you have the Board of Elections. Each have their specific roles, duties, and responsibilities. Reading is fundamental. For those members of the Board of Elections that still do not understand, what else can I say? Please read. Read to exceed. I'm not saying you have to be an expert on election process, because we are learning. Every day we learn something new. Each day is a new day. I celebrate each sunrise because for me, each sunrise is rebirth. But the information is written. The elections laws are codified in what is known as the Virgin Islands Code. In there, it tells you the laws, what the supervisor of election has authority to do, and the Board of Elections. As a matter of fact, I really appreciate the governor, the Honorable Albert Bryan Jr., requesting an official opinion from the Attorney General Gordon Ria about the process, the nomination process. Let's clarify it, because it definitely needs clarification, because you still have some members of the Board of Election giving false information and misleading the people instead of trying to increase confidence and trust in our election system. As I said, facts can be verified. You can go read the election laws for yourself, Title 18 of the Virgin Islands Code. Also, you may want to be familiarized with the revised Organic Act of 1954. In there, it gives you the eligibility requirements to run for the at-large, and that's one of the, and for other various public offices. Because one of the misleading information that some members of the Board of Election give out is you have to live in St. John to be eligible to run for the office at large, the at-large seat. It's not quite accurate. You have to be a bona fide resident of St. John, according to the revised Organic Act of 1954. What that means is that's your domicile. You can only have one domicile. That's your forever home, your permanent resident. It doesn't mean once you're elected, you have to live in St. John to serve as the at-large senator, because you could be going back and forth. It's less than 15 minutes on a ferry from St. Thomas to St. John. Our current at-large senator is Angel Boquez. He's not being challenged in the primary election because there's no other Democrat running against him for that seat. There is a challenge from a St. John resident for the seat, the at-large seat. We're not personalizing anything. The position requires you have to be a U.S. citizen for every public office in the U.S. Virgin Islands. You have to be a U.S. citizen. Whether naturalized or a natural born U.S. citizen. Right off the bat, you have to be a U.S. citizen. For the delegate to Congress, you could be naturalized, but it has to be for at least 7 years naturalized citizen. Next thing, you have to meet eligibility requirement. For each office, you have to have a particular age, have attained that age by the time of election. If you want to get the specific information, as I said, read to exceed Virgin Islands Code, the Revised Organic Act of 1954. Okay? Now, you also have to meet a residence requirement. If you are running for the at-large seat, you must be registered to vote in the St. Thomas, St. John district. You have to be 3 years consecutive a bona fide residence, consecutive to when you first elected, of St. John. Angel Boquez met that requirement. But once you are elected, that doesn't mean you have to remain living in St. John, okay? Because that's your forever home. You could always go back. It's a skip and a hop between St. Thomas and St. John. You sometimes lay your head down to rest in St. John, and sometimes you lay your head down to rest in St. Thomas. Sometimes you lay your head down to rest in St. Croix. But no longer how long you are away from your domicile, you must still, if you own your home, property taxes. Yes, you're not exempt. Oh, wait. Pay your property taxes. And if it's a home, you need electricity, right? And water. There's one public utility company, it's called WAPA, Water and Power Authority. Your WAPA bill can prove that's where your domicile is. So I hope I've clarified for the eligibility requirement to run for at-large Senate. Now, to run for a senator from the St. Thomas St. John district, you could be living on either island, St. Thomas or St. John, or you could live on Water Island. As long as you have been residing in that district as a bona fide resident for, I'm not sorry, not as a bona fide resident, as a resident for 3 consecutive years prior to the election. If you're off by a day or so, you could be challenged. It has to be 3 years, 365 days in a year. So you had the situation with Kevin Rodriguez, if you can recall, and that's what I focus on, political history. Kevin Rodriguez was not allowed into the legislature because in the Revised Organic Act, the senators can decide this. They have the sole authority to decide who are going to be member of the legislature. Okay? So please, if you have any questions, need clarity, you're welcome to call in, or if you want to join me at the table with Crucian Educator, you're welcome to call. But if you're just listening and taking in the information, I appreciate that too. Facts can be verified. And let's see what else we could go to. Election information, previous elections. Let's see. Learn more, previous election. You have so much things you could look up. 2026 election. Let me look that up. The 2026 election calendar. Okay, they have also the 2024. And this is from the Office of the Supervisor of Elections, Caroline F. Fox, Supervisor. Amending version as of June 10th, 2026. That's not so long ago. Okay, let's see where we are now. We're in July. Okay, the last day to register to vote for the primary election was July 2nd, so that's gone. Deadline for qualified electors to petition the boards of election to cancel the registration of any registered elector for cause shown, that was July 12th. Okay, today is July 14. Let's see what's happening here. July 15, that's tomorrow. Testing of electronic voting machines and tabulated equipments for the early voting period. Certification by the board. See, the board has to certify the testing of the machines. The board should know what their role and responsibilities are, the members. Board members, you have to certify the machines, okay? So do not be promoting doubts in the heads of people. You are the one. The machines are safe. Okay, we have the tabulators. Country popular myth. We are already voting on paper. choice to vote on paper. I don't know how this narrative started. But we want to vote on paper. You have been voting on paper. That has never changed. We have always been voting on paper. We have always had the opportunity to vote on paper. What has happened is the system has modernized. We're in the 21st century. This is the digital era. Yes, you may mark on your ballots directly. It's on a piece of paper. It's not in your hand. But you have to insert that ballot, that paper ballot, into a tabulator, which counts the votes, counts the number of ballots. And you have machines that will find out the total votes cast for each person. So technology is electronic counting, not hand counting. Some folks would like to go backwards, but I have a problem with that. Going backward does not make any sense. Let's move forward. Let's progress, not regress. Why would you want to go backward? Anybody that would like to go backward, you could call in and tell me why. Why go backwards? You remember the days when we didn't have cell phones? Remember the days when we didn't have color TVs? Remember the days when we didn't have microwaves? Because it was in my lifetime. And I'm not more than a century old. I am more than half a century. But in my lifetime, once upon a time, there was no cell phones. There was no color TVs. There was no microwaves. There was no internet. There was no Facebook or other social media. And today we have that. But you want to go backwards? Really? Why? You want to go back to the days when we had no tabulators? When it took forever to manually count the votes? Well, some members of the Board of Election think it's a great idea. I don't. Let's move forward. You have the tabulators. If you do not wish to use the tabulators, please do not go on election day and make a scene and have a meltdown, have a temper tantrum to request that you put your paper ballot into a cardboard box. Please don't do that. There will be security. You live, you learn. You learn from your mistakes. It happened in 2024. You had a disturbing scene. You had a voter. Despite the fact that this voter had knowledge that only tabulators were going to be used and should have known the law required that your ballot be inserted into a tabulator. It's by law. It's not something that they, by whim, the supervisor of election decided one day she wake up, you know what, I'm just going to not have a standalone box. It's the law. Laws are passed by lawmakers, your senators, not by the supervisor of election. The supervisor of election takes an oath to uphold the laws of the United States and the Virgin Islands of the United States. So the law says you must put your paper ballot into a tabulator. Now, if you don't want to mark on your ballot, for those of you that have difficulty seeing or manually writing, there is a machine, touchscreen machine that you can use. But as I said, all this, you have access to go see how to use the machines, the demonstrations. Okay, July 18, last day for receipt by the supervisor of elections of application for mail out absentee ballots for the primary elections. Okay, it's a false narrative that you don't have options. You do have options. You have various methods of casting your votes. Okay? Casting your ballots. You can do early voting, where you physically go to the election office and vote on a paper and put it in a tabulator, or use a machine, the touchscreen machine. That's early voting. You have absentee ballot, where you're going to mail in your ballot. Okay? And then you could show up on the day. I like it on the day of election. I love the excitement. I love the energy. Because I don't take for granted my right and my privilege to vote. I want to be part of this process. I want to help shape the destiny of the U.S. Virgin Islands and make political history. I want to know I had a say in electing the 10th elected governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, members of the Board of Elections, the Board of Education, the new delegate to Congress, an at-large senator, and 7 district senators to the 37th legislature. I love that power I have, and I will never surrender it. Okay? Now, deadline, July 22nd, deadline for appeals to the district court by persons whose claim for registrations were denied or whose previous registrations was canceled and who has exhausted all administrative remedies. Just July 22nd. July 25, deadline to request poll watcher certifications. That's a Saturday. July 26th, last day for examination of voting machines and instruction in use of electronic voting machines. Okay? July 29, that's a Wednesday, last day of early voting. Let me go back. What was the first day of early voting? Okay, wait a bit. July 20th, that's a Monday. That's this Monday coming. This Monday coming, July 20th, is the first day of early voting. All right. August 1st, deadlines for email absentee ballots, 5 p.m. Primary election day. That's the big day. That's when the big race will be completed. And we will get unofficial results the night of August 1st, Saturday, August 1st. Who wants to wait? Who really wants to wait for days to get unofficial results? That's what would happen if you had manual counting, which I'm vehemently opposed to. Should that bill appear on the table, I will speak against it. It makes no sense. Our people are better than that. It's not complicated. A 2-year-old now know how to use a cell phone. We are in the digital era. You should be able to use the technology. And as I said, if you're not sure of how to use the machines, call the election system office and find out when you can get a demonstration how to use the machines. But most important, do not surrender your rights to vote. At this moment, we are going to conclude the show. Thanks for listening. Live, listen, learn, love, and